Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone to a meeting of the full council. I'll just go through a couple of house cleaning, I guess. If you're not speaking, put yourselves on mute. If you want to speak, raise your hand or just wave frantically. I'm sure I'll pick you up. Anyone watching at home on the live stream, if you do have a question you want to ask in the open forum, you can put that through on the live chat. We will be taking time at the end of the meeting to catch up on any live chats that have happened that have been after the open forum. I will be taking item 14 and then item 9 after item 3, the open forum. We do have a speaker on item 14 who isn't here yet. But we'll just get that out of the way so they're not waiting around. So item 1 then, apologies for absence.
Lindsay Gaskell, Ken Hartley and John Rose Parker.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any prejudicial pecuniary interests to declare? Nope, it's very rare anyone does. Item 3, open forum. There's nobody put any questions in on the live chat. Joe, have you received any questions by email?
No, none at all.
Okay, that's fine. Has the speaker not arrived?
No, no one is yet.
Right. I mean, we could take minutes of the last meeting before and give them a bit more time. So is everyone happy with the minutes of the last meeting? Happy they're a correct record? Any corrections to be made?
Move them.
Thank you. Have we got a seconder for that, Jane? That's great. Anyone against? Just shout out, unmute yourself, shout out if you are. Nope. Okay, they are approved as a correct record. No, not yet.
No.
Should we just crack on with it? Yeah. Item 14 then, to consider the council's response to the following. It's an erection of 19 bungalows with associated landscaping, car parking and access from Brogden Lane. Who wants to come in on this? Jen, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. This site off Brogden Lane, there's quite a lot of history regarding this particular site. Looking at the reports from various sources, it seems that it falls within an area of archaeological sensitivity, being that the Roman road Ribchester to Ilkley skirts the north boundary, and also possible Romano-British enclosure located around about 750 metres to the northwest. It is recommended that a trial trenching is undertaken along the northern part of the, I'm trying to read my writing here, footprint of the proposed development as a condition of any planning permission. There's 8 designated heritage assets located within the wider study area and 31 archaeological remains within the wider study area too. The development area itself appears to have characteristics of ancient enclosed fields with winding narrow lanes connecting a dispersed settlement pattern and isolated farmsteads. the particular area could have been farmed during the medieval period, if not earlier. So basically, it's quite a sensitive area there for a development such as that to be potentially built on. Not only that, there are recordings of flooding on that particular site.
The member of the public's about to enter the meeting.
All right, well, I'm quite happy to let the member of the public come in at this moment, if I can just come back when that member of public has spoken. Thank you.
Okay, David, do you want to stop sharing your screen? Time being. Yeah, Joe, let him in.
They're in.
They're in.
I've just admitted him.
Okay, Tim, if you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Once you get going, you'll have a maximum of 5 minutes.
I didn't think I was up just yet.
Yeah.
15, Tom.
Is it 15? No, 15 is open forum. It's maximum 5 minutes for
All right, sorry.
any one person. Yeah, Tim, take it away.
Sorry, I didn't realise this was a present something. I was more kind of listening into what you guys were discussing in terms of the meeting. I was going to hold back on my comments and my objections until just before the 26th, the deadline for that.
Right. I mean, if you want to observe the meeting, we're live streaming it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anyone invited into this meeting is for speaking on it.
Right. Sorry, I was unaware of that.
We're happy to give you a link if you want to watch it. I'll put that in the meeting.
I have got a copy of the link. That's fine. So if this is being live streamed, then we can pause that bit. But yes, I mean, I've got objections. I've got a list of things I'll present later on, but I'll hold off on that just for now.
Well, we are discussing item 14 now.
That's fine. I mean, obviously, I'll say at this point that the key objections will focus around the flood risk assessment, and that there's a number of flaws within that have not been appropriately addressed. So that's where I will direct your attention to when it comes to making that decision later on.
Well, we'll be making a decision after this discussion.
What was about but this was for the 26th.
This is to consider the council's response to the planning application.
Okay, so this is different to the actual planning application review.
We as Barnoldswick Town Council are going to make comments on the planning application.
Okay.
And the decision will be taken at the area committee.
Tom, if we just explain, it's the only meeting we've got before then. Well, I can explain. It's the only meeting the town council have an opportunity to put a response together before that date. This is the only meeting date we've got planned.
Okay.
So if you have comments that you want to include in our response, you can give them now.
Joe, I think Tim.
Well, in which case, I would.
Well.
Yeah, go on, Jane. I know you messaged me separately, didn't you?
Yeah, I think what Tim's getting at, I think he wants to actually now respond to the West Craven Area Committee meeting where councillors will go over all the comments, and then he'll probably do his presentation then by the sounds. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if I were then to say to you guys that I would be encouraging you to closely examine the flood risk assessment and how that was carried out and the procedures that were followed by the company that were employed. And I would say that there have been a number of serious flaws in how they have produced that report, and that is not presenting a true and accurate reflection of the situation on the ground, simply because of the procedures that they followed during that flood risk assessment. That would be my primary advice to you guys. and that my advice to you would be to reject the application because not due diligence has not been carried out.
Okay.
And as
Thanks
locals,
for that, Tim.
you are quite aware of the flood risk issues.
Okay, thank you for that.
So, okay.
We'll certainly take your views on board in our response. Yeah, well, thank you for coming. All right, I'll open up the floor now. Jane, do you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes. So just before I get onto flooding, the actual position of that development site is located with the Drumlin area, and also, as I say, within that close proximity to all those listed buildings. So it's quite an important setting that development site lies on. In respect to flooding, there's some quite sharp remarks being made on various reports. I think the EA website indicated the site is susceptible to surface water runoff. The slope, the actual slope of the development itself goes from south to north. And they're actually, what they're doing is potentially planning to put houses on the northern border, and that northern border is where a lot of that flooding actually puddles there. There is a gully situated in the low part of the site too. The Pendle Borough Council report says there's a very high risk of flooding from surface water and a very high risk from groundwater. And that the development should avoid parts where it is potentially going to flood. So another one is the highway safety issue. Brogden Lane comes out onto Gisborne Road there. There is bad access onto Gisborne Road. Traffic can be a bit of a problem down there. There's all sorts of types of vehicles using that particular stretch of road. We've got big tractors. There's cars parked along the side of Gisborne Road there. I've been down that little stretch, you know, many a time, and it really is difficult trying to come out with a car. You have to nudge right onto virtually the middle of the road to be able to see if there's anything coming. Not only that, across from that junction, lane ends there. There's planning permission gone in for the site, the field directly opposite. So consequently, there's going to be lots of traffic coming, potentially, if it gets passed, coming from that other development into that same area. So it's going to put a lot of pressure onto Gisborne Road there, which actually worries me quite a bit for highway safety there. And also Brogden Lane itself, there are lots and lots of horses use that lane, horse and carts, ramblers, cyclists. So it's going to put a lot more pressure onto that, onto the road itself. And I just don't think it's in a particularly good place. I think I've covered most of the points there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Anyone else want to come in on this? Anyone? Nope. Okay. Jane, do you want to move those comments that you've made as the council's response? You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. I'm happy to do that, Chairman. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Hurd, I think. Yep. Okay. David, have you got a comment?
No.
No. I mean, you put something in chat which can be seen on the live stream. Just
No.
okay, that's fine. Right. Anyone against that resolution? Nope. Okay, that's accepted then. I'm sure Joe can write that up nice and succinctly. Next on the agenda, I said we'd take item 9, which is the local plan. And to discuss and agree comments to be submitted on the local plan for Pendle. Now, I believe Barnoldswick only has one site allocation for housing. And some changes to industrial use. So Councillor Whip, I'll bring you in now. David?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, for me, since I've been coordinating a response from the Town Council, and I'm not quite sure why I got the short straw, but it has enlivened at least 2 afternoons recently. Perhaps enlivened isn't quite the right word. But I did have a fair grounding in the subject before looking at it from a Barnoldswick Town Council's perspective. So I can understand why I might have got fingered for this job. Chairman, I'm going to share the screen and we will have plans and we will have suggested wording. And the wording is a reflection of the discussion that we've had as town councillors outside the meeting in preparing a response that we could agree formally tonight. So I will put it up and go through it as quickly as I can. Chairman, the plan to the left there is the reserve site for housing allocation, which is included within the local plan proposals. It's not an allocation of the first order, it's a reserve site. So it might be called upon if the take-up of development isn't sufficient in other parts or on brownfield sites and the like. But I'll come back to that because what I want to do for a start is concentrate on the general points. So, and I'll paraphrase some of these. So in terms of housing numbers, Barlick has been affected by the pandemic. In the West Craven area, there's over 1,000 jobs being lost. Offshoring of production by Rolls-Royce and relocation of the call centre at Spring Mill in Earby. So the loss of many highly skilled and well-paid jobs will have an inevitable consequence on the local housing market. And then the third bullet point there is that the housing number for Pendle as a whole should be reduced in response to the structural impact of this economic contraction, and a figure closer to 146 should be used for the annual requirement rather than the 240 included in the plan. And the reason for that is that the if you reduce the numbers, you need less land. I mean, it's as simple as that. So by inflating the number of houses required, you're inflating the land requirement as well. In terms of the second block of bullet points there, the number of houses that have got permission in Barnoldswick is quite significant, and there's still quite a lot of those houses that still have to be built out. But we've got to the point where, you know, I think in terms of the local plan overall, Barnoldswick's sort of too short of the entire allocation during the plan period. And if there is over allocation, this point down here, that'll lead to developers cherry picking the most desirable sites, leaving less attractive ones undeveloped. So it won't gain us anything to have more and more housing allocated through the local plan. And then a section on infrastructure. Health service provision is inadequate. Butts Clinic falling to bits. Services being pulled out of there. Some relocating to an overcrowded renal centre. We've got the GP surgery, which is converted cottages, very cramped, inaccessible, and not really fit for purpose in the modern age. And having additional populations would just put more and more pressure onto those services. Education settings aren't adequate for additional pupil numbers, and highway networks provide insufficient capacity for growth in many parts of the town. And as we've just heard on that last item, flooding issues are a constraint in several areas. And then a final section there, impact on landscape and heritage assets. Barnoldswick's set relatively discreetly in the landscape. It's unobtrusive, it's largely hidden within its enclosing hills and drumlins. Expansion of the town will adversely impact the rural character of the town's surrounding area, with increased urbanisation significantly affecting the character of the town itself. And final bullet point, in many parts of the town, housing development will spoil the setting of designated heritage assets, including those of the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. So general comments there, and then looking at site allocations. The first one is P055, which is this area off Foster Road, which abuts the field that we've just been talking about with the plan application that's come in. And it is named as a reserve housing allocation site, which means that it could be called upon and used if the take-up isn't so great elsewhere. And the proposal from the town council is that we believe the land is particularly constrained because of inadequate highway access, and that development would result in an unacceptable extension of the town into open countryside. And that could well be something that applies to the plan application that we've just been considering as well. That's that bit. The next set of comments are all about what the local plan described as reasonable alternatives. Now, these are not included in the local plan, but they are proposals that have been put forward by landowners or developers at one point or another, and are likely to rear their heads again as landowners and developers continue to put these forward at further stages. So it's important that the town council and others have a view about their appropriateness or not. So the plans will come up in the order that the comments are here. So the first one is Wapping, and can I just check that people can actually read the words? I don't need to go through all of those. Yeah, people are nodding, so I'll just fire through them. So that's the first section at Wapping. it's in a conservation area, which is significant in the conservation area seeks to conserve the existing conditions. The second one is the Silent Night Wood. That's Silent Night, that's the Lorry Park, West Craven High School, the new church school here, and it's that extent there. And the words there, loss of woodland, important buffer between commercial and residential, green wedge. The next one, land at Lane Ends Farm, well, this isn't appropriate because for good or ill, it's already got planning consent, and it's in a different category now because it's, it's already included, apart from that little bit, which is the gardens, which is the subject of the most recent application. But the vast bulk of this site already has planning permission, so it can't be used to meet further future allocations. The next one, Park Hill Reservoir. You'll recall Yorkshire Water intend building a new reservoir in this area here, making that area redundant. And later on the agenda, we'll be discussing whether Yorkshire Water can get in from here, or the circumstances in which they can. And one of the reasons why Yorkshire Water don't want to come up Park Hill is because the inappropriate access. So if it's inappropriate to build a reservoir, it's inappropriate to build houses. That's essentially the argument. The next one is a bit of county council land off Clifford Street, and the reasons there: inadequate access. There are significant issues with drainage and flooding of adjacent properties downstream here. Next one is a bit of a variation on the site P055, which is over here, but this includes the land which is subject to the current planning application. So inadequate access, impact on landscape character, extension into the open countryside. This one looks a bit complicated, but it's at Meadow Park, and this area here already has outline consent granted on appeal. There was a recent detailed application for that area, and subject to them being able to overcome drainage problems, the that's set to be approved. But the wider area here, the objection is that this would extend Barnoldswick's boundary right up to Salterford and close the gap between the two communities, which is an undesirable thing. And I mean, it's undesirable from our point of view, but also undesirable from the point of view of people in Salterford. The next one is Monkroyd, and again we've got impact on landscape, open countryside, proximity to the site of ancient St Mary's Abbey. It's in a conservation area. There's reputed to be a holy well on Carfole Lane, and lower Carfole Farm has got grade 2 listing. Next one is Applegarth, and proximity to Rolls Royce, quite noisy, not really the best place to be building because you'll have loads of complaints, and access, which is an issue off Applegarth as well. This is land to the southeast of Longing Lane. This is actually below Barnsley Farm and Cottages here. Longing is down here, that's Raynall Crescent, and this is the land here, that's the Barnsley Mill site. This is the site that floods. It's got outline consent, and the detailed consent was refused recently because this is part of a lake that forms whenever we have heavy rainfall. So the suggestion there is impact on landscape, open countryside extension, eroding the gap between Barnoldswick and Salterfirth, impact on heritage due to Little Cut, and the fact that here we've got the tunnel that you can just see the very end of it there. So a comprehensive set of reasons why not. Greenfield Lane, well, they can start off with this one because this is now owned by the Town Council. We'll be discussing it on the next item on the agenda, and the Town Council is not a willing vendor. So it's either one finger or two fingers up to that one. This is D&H concrete site. Currently, it's an employment site. Question marks about access along Fernbank Avenue there. And this is quite a notorious area of land. This is land overlooking the locks, which was included in the strategic housing land availability assessment in a divisive or divided vote by Pendle Council in 2014, which gave the green light to the landowners and the developers. Planning applications have been submitted for the whole of this area. One was withdrawn, one went to appeal and was knocked back, and subsequently a smaller area here was applied for, refused locally, and but then permission was granted on appeal. So there will, subject to the economics stacking up, there will be development in this area here, but the wider plot of land doesn't have consent, and given its impact on the heritage assets down on the canal, there's very good reasons why it shouldn't be developed. Again, impact on the landscape, extension into the countryside. And then finally, the Fernbank Mill site. This is the site of the former Fernbank Mill. That's a car park area there. It is a brownfield site with possible use for housing, but the owners have previously, or perhaps previous owners, have intended for employment use with the inclusion of a velodrome test track. So that's a reason why that perhaps should not be used. But in terms of brownfield housing sites, that's probably the favoured one. So if there was any need for further housing in Barnoldswick, perhaps that might be somewhere that should be looked at. So that's the end of the housing land list, Chairman. Just a few further issues. There's a proposed mixed-use allocation at Longing Mill, Ousledale Foundry, and the land off Ravenscroft Way that's in the same ownership. And the proposal from the Town Council is that we object to the mixed-use designation. The area should retain employment land designation. The land is occupied by a multitude of small and medium enterprises. These would struggle to find suitable alternative accommodation if their present premises were replaced by housing. There is insufficient undeveloped land off Ravenscroft Way to house all the existing occupants. And the loss of land, employment land on the opposite side of the canal, which is the Barnsley Mill site, highlights the need to retain such designation at Long Ing. And then 3 further points. In terms of settlement boundaries, the proposals include a lot of tidying up, which to be welcomed really. Protected employment areas, I could put a plan up, but I'd have to find it. Essentially, what this says is that those protected employment areas, as well as continuing with the land at Long Ing, should include the balance of the land which has been partially developed to the northeast of Ravenscroft Way. And then a final proposal, Chairman, in terms of the written policies and the comments that the Town Council might have on that. And the Town Councillors haven't had the opportunity to go through those in great detail. So it's proposed that we should delegate authority to the clerk to submit further comments on proposed new policies, subject to consultation with members. And a particular issue is the commercial core and the policies relating to the town centres, but there may be other things that people pick up on in that. So I apologise for the length of that. I will now shut up.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whip. Do we have anyone else who would like to come in on the local plan? Chris, Councillor Church, go ahead.
Yes, may I ask, we are obviously objecting in principle to the numbers and volumes overall. Assuming that all the other councils will have similar feelings, what authority do we have, or what power do we have to set or ask for a minimum size? Will he just be knocked back on the grounds that everybody else will be?
David, do you have an answer?
Well, Chairman, I mentioned during that that discourse that Barnoldswick is in a position where, you know, there are so many planning permissions in existence, excuse me, that that, you know, in this planned period, there needs to be no further permissions at all. And Jane provided a table during the day, and I'm quoting from Jane's tables. You know, if she's going to come in on this, I won't speak about it. I'm looking to see if she's nodding or shaking her head. Oh, right, go for it. So the summary is that in Barnoldswick, between 2014 and 2030, which is the planned period, Barnoldswick needs, according to all the calculations, 446 new dwellings. Now, we can argue about that, but, you know, given those are the numbers that we're working on, between 2014 and 2020, there were 154 completions. And then as at 31st of March 2020, there were 290 commitments. In other words, there were 290 extant planning permissions, you know, where people can build. So the remaining housing need was literally 2. So we have got a very good argument in need to say we've had our fair share, thank you very much, you know, and you can sod off until 2030. It is an entirely tenable position, but we've got to bear in mind that the planning inspector who approved part 1 of the plan, the core strategy, said that if there wasn't sufficient take up in other parts of the borough, then developers could come to the more popular parts, clearly Barnoldswick being one of them, and get further permissions in our area, because the numbers are minimum numbers rather than maximum numbers. So we need to guard against that situation arising, and you know, provide the evidence up front as to why sites should not be allocated.
Thank you, Councillor Whip. Chris, have you got anything else you want to add? Or
No, I'm good with that. Thanks very much. Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Mills, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there was today a consultation about the local plan part 2 run by Pendle Borough Council, which was open to anyone to attend. I do believe there is another one, and I'm not sure which day it is, but they have been advertising the fact that people can go to this second one. So basically, in the past, there's been a lot of, as David said, there's been a lot of house building going on. Barnoldswick was looked upon as a desirable site for people to come and live. Again, as David has said, you know, we've had all the building already. We've been through it. Our numbers are quite drastically reduced now. In other areas, there hasn't been as much, and from what I gather from the Pendle Borough Council officers was that these reserve sites that have been produced to be consulted upon in all the other areas will form basis of their numbers, meaning that it should take the pressure of people wanting to come and build in Barnoldswick. There were residents from Earby in that meeting today, and I think they were quite flabbergasted with the amount of land that's been put in there for reserve sites and alternative, reasonable alternative sites, because again, it's building potential on a lot of green fields there. So by trying to get this local plan 2 together, what it could do is potentially try and help Barnoldswick, you know, get away from all the building that's been going on. So from their perspective, it sounds quite enthusiastic. They didn't seem too concerned that we were going to get heavily bombarded with applications and all these development sites coming forward. So hopefully, you know, I'm quite hopeful that you know, that we might be seeing a reduction. Well, just keep us fingers crossed on that one anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Anyone else want to come in on this? We've got Councillor Whip's proposed response. Does anyone want to second that? Jen? Yep.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman. Yeah, I'll second you.
Yep. Okay. All those in favour, just raise your hand or nod. Thumbs up. Yeah. Anyone against that? Marjorie, we can't see you, I'm afraid. Want to just say if you're in favour.
I'm in favour with the rest, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Okay, that's passed then. That will be our response. Moving on then to item 5, committee/working groups. So we have the allotments committee that was on the 4th of March, Unfortunately, that was after the papers were sent out, so you have received the minutes from that meeting in your emails. The thing of note on the allotments committee is they have sent a resolution through to the full council to create some more allotment sites, because our list has exceeded, well, it's over 130 people long. And we're getting more people added to the list every day than we can give them away. So the allotments committee has put a resolution through that is asking this council to create some allotment sites on lands that it already owns. And I'll share the screen here. So this is the land at Greenfield. This is the site that was outlined in red that Councillor Whip pointed out before. The proposed sites are this, I guess you'd call it maybe dark cyan section here, along with this yellow, and this green section here. The yellow lines here are where the footpaths are. We're not too sure if this is the right line or this is the right line. Anyway, doesn't matter. This purple area is the existing allotment that we do have at Grimmerfield, just to help you get some bearings. Part of the resolution was to provide parking spaces, and that is this red section here. Now this is to avoid cars parking in the bus turning circle up on the top left here, as that is a single yellow line. And is fully needed for the bus to turn round, as well as bin wagons and such. There was a question mark on whether the parking should be here or up at the top here on our access track. So that is to be discussed. This area here outlined in yellow is a site that we are proposing be made larger for the person who is currently on a 364 grazing license on this land, to then retain as an allotment on the basis that he gives up his other allotment. This would include the banking adjacent to the beck there and this section at the base. I'll stop sharing now and open it up to the floor. What do people think? Jen, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. In relation to the area in red for the car parking along that track, is there permission, is there access for cars currently to use that track and to be able to get to any parking that is created there? Who owns it? Sorry, what was that?
We own the track. The house there and the barn both have access rights over that track.
Okay.
But yes, we also have access as landowners on the track.
Just one other thing then, because there could be two types of vehicle movements along there. I don't know, I'm just thinking about conflict, you know, if you've got cars going into the car parking and there's somebody wanting to come down from that building, you know, the house, farm there, wherever it is that's coming down. I'm just a bit concerned that it may potentially cause a bit of friction. I don't know, it's just something that may or may not happen. It's just something that I'm mindful of.
Okay, Councillor Whip.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I back up what Jane's saying there. The track through to West Close Farm and Barn has been maintained entirely by the residents there, and I don't think they take too kindly if the town council just muscled in and you know, put a parking area and started using effectively the surface that they've paid to put in. So for that reason, and the reason of gravity, I would suggest that a better option would be off the access track that goes over the top of the hill, which is to the north of the site. And I mentioned gravity there because, say, allotment holders got a load of horse muck delivered, and you know, they wanted to wheel it down to the plots. They would be wheeling it down rather than wheeling it up. And if anybody's done any barrowing in their life, it's a damn sight easier going downhill than it is pushing it uphill. So you know, I think from a practical point of view, that might be beneficial. When we had a look on site, there is the option of using the opposite side of that access track up to the hedge on Greenberfield Lane. However, I don't think that's a really very good idea, because when they created the access track, when United Utilities created the access track as a whole road for the sewage works, they bulldozed all the topsoil into that space between the track and the hedge, and that topsoil is mounded up and I've got quite a lot of growth on it now. So I think there's two issues. First of all, we're affecting wildlife. It's a lovely wildlife corridor. And secondly, if we wanted to do it on that side of the track, we'd have a whole load of extra muck to shift in order to do the groundworks. Whereas if we do it on the allotment side, then the topsoil just gets pushed onto the allotments and incorporated into the topsoil for the allotment plots themselves. Just moving on to the footpath, I think the definitive map shows a footpath going through two hedges, which it clearly doesn't, and it actually skirts round West Close Barn, and that's fine. That can be incorporated into a pedestrian access for the allotments, and if anybody walked to the allotments from the end of Westfield Road, Blakely Crescent, that route, or came across the park, on foot or on a bike, then they could get into the allotments from that direction. So I don't think the presence of the path is great hindrance looking at that end of it. And finally, Chairman, just to compliment you on coming to a satisfactory arrangement with the current grazing licence occupant in terms of keeping the waterfowl on there and keeping the geese happy.
Councillor Church, you indicated.
Yes, just supporting the whole idea in principle. It seems absolutely ideal in every way. As David says, we get to keep the area for the waterfowl, and I understand from that it's not only an entity in itself, but lots of school parties come to look at them. That would be a solution for them, albeit on a smaller site. We've got the area where it's going to be in shadow for most of the time, which could be made for hen pens, which is perfect for them. The slope of the large main area is good for drainage, and I'm with David. The upper of the two parking spots would be probably preferable, but as long as we've got one or the other, that would be fine. Considering the numbers of people on the waiting list at the moment, we're talking about potentially taking a third of the entire list off in one stroke, as well as increasing the whole stock, so that the list is going to be taken down hopefully more quickly in future. The whole thing is just too good to be true. We should go for it in every way.
Yeah. Councillor Whittingham, you had your hand up.
I think I was only going to corroborate what Jane and David have both said. That's why I lowered my hand. So, you know, with the positioning of the parking spaces isn't great there. It needs to be on the north end of it, of the plan you've got.
That's fine. Okay. Councillor Hoyle.
Yeah, the position of the parking, if you remember, we did discuss. I do think the top side's probably the best place to put it, just because, like David said, it's downhill for borrowing things and stuff like that from cars. I think, I can't remember who mentioned it, but something to do with sort of putting the same size parking bay, but coming off the road into the allotments from the top end.
Okay. Joe, have you got any comments?
You know the car parking, could it go where the bus turns round?
No, I don't
Not,
think
not
so.
where the bus goes round, onto the smaller piece of land, but off where the bus goes round, because then you've got a bigger space to swing back out. You know, we're saying part of the site's shaded.
I did look at that. There's a significant drop off from the height of the bus turning circle to the site.
But it stops us having to dig out because it's dug out.
It would require quite a bit of landscaping and adding
Right.
of material to raise the level
I was
to
just
make
thinking
a
from a coming back off a site, if you've gone in forwards, it will be better come off a wider area, but it's fine, whichever you think.
Okay.
Could I ask, on that basis, could we have another quick look at the map just to see what and where Joe's talking about?
Can indeed. Yeah, so Joe was, I think, saying this area here at the base bottom. When we first discussed this, me and Joe, that was my preference, just in terms of quick access. But just on this line here, there is a significant height difference, which would require probably a machine on to sort that. I mean, in terms of my preference for the parking location, I did prefer it in the middle, just purely on the basis that the people using this site at the bottom here, when given the option of parking properly up here and walking round, or parking improperly here just next to the site, I think we all know what the general person would prefer and do.
If I may, Councillor Whip, right quickly, while you're just there, where your mouse is now, if you go up slightly and to the right, up a bit more, that corner there for parking.
You do lose your advantage of gravity, because that is the same level as the bottom.
But Tom, they could park for the bottom bit. They could park there.
What I was going to suggest is you could do both. You could have a smaller section along this road here and a smaller one up here as well. I don't exactly like going on the end here, just because it's already a messy junction. And if you add even more cars going in different directions, especially when the new planning application has an access here as well, it'll just get a bit confusing on the ground. Jane, is that an old hand, or are you wanting to come back in?
Thank you. I'm glad you put that plan back up, because I was trying to work out exactly where the proposed parking on the top site would possibly be. So would it be at all possible where our access is along that lane, the north side of the allotment, could that be soft landscaped to try and hide the allotments there? I'm just thinking, because potentially in that bottom field where there could well be houses. So you're coming into a beautiful spot off Gisborne Road. There's going to be houses there, so there's going to be a lot of noise potentially from that. Then you could go down this road on our track, and then you're straight into allotments. And then at the top side, you've got allotments as well. I'm just thinking, would it, you know, for tree planting, hedges, just as a buffer between the allotments and our track, just to make it a little bit more pleasing to walk down. I don't know if that could possibly be a possibility.
Jane, do you need a hedge like they have on Prairie Way? Like blackberries and things.
Yeah, you know, yeah, anything like that. You know, all you know, to try and help. We've got a bit of wildlife in this middle section, and that having something on this other section to soften it and complement it. You know, you might have birds and wildlife and things bobbing between the two. So I just think it might complement it if we could potentially do something like that. Thank you.
Councillor Whipper, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, it was just on, well, I mean, I've got a proposal to put, which I think, you know, sort of encompasses everything that we've been covering. But in terms of the creating parking areas under those trees, can I remind you that those are trees with tree protection orders on them? They are beech trees, and beech trees have relatively shallow roots, and you should not compact or cover the roots, because you'll end up killing the trees. So, I mean, that's the reason why, besides the change in levels, where, you know, the land is considerably lower than the access there, you know, it's, to my mind, it's a thou shalt not. And if you put in a planning application for you know, a hard built up level parking area under those trees, I think you get knocked back. And I would be, you know, more than happy to propose refusal. So, you know, hands off those trees. However, that does form part of I think the proposal that we need to pass if we're going to move this forward with any sort of alacrity, because there are some there's some dead wood standing on that tree line, and I think as a matter of urgency that we need to get a tree survey carried out, and then discuss with the tree officer at Pendle Council the way forward. At the moment, those trees, you know, if they fall over or a limb drops off them, they're not doing much harm because they're just falling into a field. But if we have allotments underneath with people working on the allotments, or indeed if there's the housing development on the other side, which you know, is inevitable now, then we need to make sure that our trees aren't killing somebody. So I think that's a matter of urgency. We need to do that as one of the first actions, and get the appropriate ecological surveys carried out as well, because dead trees are attractive to different types of creatures. So that's the first thing I propose. The second thing, Chairman, is that, and I know Joe's been endeavouring to find out what planning permission we would need for this. It may be that the parking areas do require some planning consent, so we need to expedite that. And then, Chairman, I think we should give authority to the clerk I was going to say in conjunction with yourself and the chairman of the allotments committee, but I think that's one and the same person. So give authority to the clerk in conjunction with yourself and chairman of the general purposes committee to get quotations for groundworks. That's both the parking areas and the creation of paths, and perhaps turning the ground over as well within the allotment areas as necessary, and the provision of fencing as well, and I can't. Oh, and sorry, and water. We should put water into the sites, and rather than bring the water right the way from the existing supply to the other Greenberfield site, that we should bite the bullet and get a fresh supply, because I don't think it'd be adequate by the time it's come over the hill and shared with the people at the other end of the track. And then there's one final thing, Chairman. You showed Gisborne Road and the houses, the tourist row that there is there, and you can just see behind there, you can see the gardens that people have had, and they have now been given notice to quit, I think, in conjunction with the planning application that we considered at the last meeting. And Chairman, I think there's been at least 2 approaches from householders who have those garden plots saying, please, 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 could they have a plot on one of the new sites that we're creating, so that when they get kicked off their existing gardens, they could transplant their plants into new soil in the new area. And I realise that this is against our policy of, Buggins' turn on the allotments list, but I wonder whether the town council could make an exception in this case. I think it's, it perhaps might only be 2 people, it might be more, but given the extenuating circumstances of them being kicked off plots that have been with those houses for decades, many decades, that we make an exception and allow people to move from their existing gardens onto new plots that hopefully we're going to be creating within the next couple of months. So I would move all that as a jumbo resolution. If there's something I've missed off, more than happy to add it.
Thank you, Councillor Whip. Missed off in that resolution is the decision on which parking space to use. Are we going with just the top, or both the top and the middle?
Chairman, I'm more than happy to leave that, for a further consideration on the ground, but I understand the arguments that are made in terms of accessing both sites. So it does make sense to split the parking areas. I'm not precious.
Yeah. I mean, my thinking is, if we are going to be using parking off that access track at the bottom, we should then come to a mutual agreement with the users of the access for maintenance of that track. And I think that should be part of the resolution here tonight. Councillor Whittingham.
Just maybe worth considering as well, if we're going to split the parking, we should allocate parking spaces for the allotment spots, so that there's no arguments for people when they turn up and they go, well, I wanted to park there because I can access there, and you don't want people moaning about it. So maybe if we allocate a parking spot for the allotment.
I think there is a bit of a difficulty in that, and we wouldn't provide enough parking for every holder to be there at once with their car, no matter what. I mean, I think that's just unfeasible. And certainly there's sites like Hardy Avenue that indeed have no parking whatsoever, that do manage. I do see your point. It's just in terms of enforcing that, I think it would be too much of a strain on Joe's workload, considering the amount of complaints she gets from allotment holders in the first place.
Okay, so maybe then if instead of a parking space, a parking area, you know, so if we're issuing a allotment in the top area, you'll park in the top parking spaces, and if your bottom area, you'll park in the bottom spaces, so that, you know.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Jane, you got your hand up.
Just on that, could you not
seconding David's motion?
I can do just on the parking there. Could you not just have a town council sign saying that it's parking for allotments? I don't know. Priority over allotment, something like that. I don't know. It's just something else to think about. Thank you.
I mean, to be honest, I think it's a bit of a non-issue. I mean, we've got an over-subscription of parking in that area, with the parking in the park itself, adjacent to the existing allotment plots, with the overflow car park there, which can be opened if needed. But I mean, we'll see, and we can always erect a sign in no time at all. Okay, we've got a mover and a second, Chris.
Yeah, just to say, I think you're right there, considering what proportion of the 365 days any one holder is going to be on site. I cannot see it being a big problem, and I take the point that Mike says, but if you're looking at 40 sites, you're not going to have 40 parking spots, and it's just going to end up, it would also be difficult to police. I think if we leave it open on a first come, first served, I can't see it being very often oversubscribed, and if it is, somebody is just going to regret turning up late and park a few yards away somewhere.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Could everyone in favour raise their hand, or Marjorie, in your case, can you just say yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's everyone. Any against, just in case I've missed anyone? Nope. Okay, that's moved. Thank you very much.
Anyone any idea how many gardens behind Gisborne Road?
Well, I think we've just got the two we've already applied on the list, haven't we, Joe?
You think we give the option, bearing in mind they've all got established gardens, that would give them the option to all of them? Because I think it's only fair. Yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Chairman, not the whole of that rearage, that frontage is actually allotments. I think there's sort of like maybe 3 or perhaps 4 that have gardens at the back, so it's probably a handful at the most.
Okay, let's move then. Do we need to accept those records as a correct record, or just note the minutes of the committee?
Note the minutes. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll note those then. Item 6, bloody hell. It's past 8. Finance, to confirm approval of payments made by the town clerk to the council since the last meeting of the council, and to delegate consent for payments to be made prior to the next meeting of the council. To also note the internal transfer from the government grant to the Civic Hall to cover the office rent of the 2 tenants for January to March 2021. Jane, you've got your hand up there. Are you moving that we accept those?
Yes, I'll confirm, move approval and consent for the payments to be made.
And noting the transfer.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second to that, Mike? Yep. Thank you. Anyone dissenting? Anyone against that? No trips to the Bahamas in the figures. Nope.
Where my tan came from.
All right. Item 7 then. Review
Have
of
you moved
financial.
B, sorry, A and B.
Again.
A and B.
Yeah, we've noted
Just to
that as well.
confirm as well, Town Council received another grant this week. Another £2,000.
We'll put that towards the improvements works for the civic
Or
hall.
the improvements, the steps that are falling in bits today.
Right. Okay. Item 7. Review of financial regulations and standing orders. So this is Jo's really. She's been reading up on our standing orders after the
Well,
handforth
Chairman,
incident.
can I jump in and demand to ask whether you've read the standing orders?
You have no authority here.
Do you want me to kick her out of the meeting? Because I am
You
still
understand them as well?
I definitely
Yeah.
understand them, yes. Right. There aren't that many things. I just think there's a couple of things that we could tighten up on. And also, I don't think item 3.3 on the financial regulations, I don't think it's sufficient. So, for example, the other day we had a wall came down at Letcliffe. Strictly speaking, it should have waited till the next town council meeting. There were dogs getting out up at the park. It's already been instructed. It's been out for court and everything else. And unofficially in your meeting, you've agreed to it. However, for example, the toilets at the Victory Park were set on fire. It needs a new door, strictly speaking, because it's over £200. It needs to come back to a meeting. It's not practical anymore. When these were done 7 years ago, we didn't have the facilities we have now. So that my thing, I'd up that.
Just for a bit of context, Colne
Ours is
can go up to 25 grand in emergencies,
with the
which
clock
is
on and
just completely insane. If you need to spend 25 grand, that should definitely go to a meeting. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
I think I need a trip somewhere.
We do-
Anyway, my
Yeah.
suggestion will be £1,000 maximum. It's only if it's urgent, and I would still let you all know it's just a dotting I's, crossing T's thing. So are you happy with that?
Move that.
Excellent. Right, and then the next one. After reading the clerk's book, it would appear that a lot of clerks rob their councils. Not me. However, I am trying to protect you. Our bank statements aren't checked from like 1 month to the next. I think they should be, and make sure that they are the balances are very similar to the balances you perceive we should hold. So my suggestion would be to put in at 4.5 that the chairman will make a monthly check of the bank statements and sign to confirm that these are consistent with balances that should be held. So for example, our savings account has £200,000 in. Which sounds like a lot, but it's town cost money. If Tom comes in and he checks what he knows, he's not signed a letter to transfer it, and he checks the statement, it's only got 80 grand in it, we've got a problem. So it will just be like a monthly check, just to make sure if I'm never not here, because I'm in the Bahamas with all your money, then you're protected. And then the last thing, item 12.1, they should be reviewed annually. It's a bit loose saying we're just doing from time to time because we haven't done them. So if we put it in there, it's got to be done every year in the March meeting, then we make sure we keep up to date with everything. And that's it.
Move those things as well, Chairman. Could I just suggest that rather than it be something that the Chairman of the Town Council, that it be Chairman of the Town Council or other nominated member?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you could even have, no, you couldn't, no, I wouldn't suggest that. Just cover his bases.
Yeah, absolutely fine. I just think a year is a long time for someone checking the bank statements.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And then understanding orders, item 18, would like to add, and this is really about virtual meetings. In the event that the meeting is streamed to the public, any question posed during the meeting that's not covered in the open forum can be discussed at the end of the agenda items at the discretion of the chairman. Because strictly speaking, when we've gone to the item for correspondence, we should just stop. But if someone's, you know, asked a question and it hasn't been spotted, it just gives us an opportunity just to mop it up. Only applicable really in virtual meetings, which may come to an end in 3 months.
Any meeting that was live streamed, including physical
Yeah,
meetings.
yeah.
Suppose, really.
And then our next one is, I've just thrown my paper on the floor. Item 46, it makes no sense.
Yeah. We don't have a Community Affairs Finance and Administration Committee. I don't know if that's probably been amalgamated into full council general purposes or what. David, do you know any context behind this?
Indeed, I do.
Oh,
Well, I mean, the Community Affairs Finance and Administration became the General Purposes Committee. Yeah. So
does it make sense in that context then?
Well, any resolution which is moved otherwise than in pursuance of a recommendation of the General Purposes Committee, or after another committee, after recommendation by the General Purposes Committee, and which, if carried, would, in the opinion of the chairman, substantially increase the expenditure upon any service which under management of the council, or reduce the revenue at the disposal of it, or which would involve capital expenditure, shall, when proposed and seconded, stand adjourned without discussion to the next ordinary meeting of the council, and any committee affected by it shall consider whether it desires to report thereon, and general purposes shall report on the financial aspects of the matter.
Perfect sense.
Well,
have you got that in layman's? I think we need a bit of...
It's just a very long sentence, but it's perfectly comprehensible. I mean, read them and understand them.
It's legally worded to basically mean that if the General Purposes Committee agrees something that's going to cost us a ton of money, it'll get agreed at the General Purposes Committee and then brought towards full council at the next available meeting.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
I think, Chairman, though, in practice, we can do away with that one. I mean, we don't allow any expenditure that's outside budget. So Town Council sets a budget at the beginning of the year, and that's the framework, you know, the financial framework that people have to work within. I mean, we've just discussed a recommendation from the Allotments Committee, which has financial implications. We don't exactly know how much it's going to cost to provide that allotment site. We do know that we've got the resources to do it within, you know, the financial framework that we've got, so we can crack on and do it. If we were, if Standing Order 46 kicked in, we couldn't actually start to do any of the work until the next meeting of the council, because we'd have to have a pause between meetings. And given that under normal circumstances we don't have a meeting of the full council every month, it's, you know, traditionally it's every 2 months, and we have general purposes in between. There's 2 months down there, so I think if Joe's suggesting that we could do away with that, then we should do.
Thank you. And I'm happy with the rest. I don't know about everyone else.
You'll have to renumber them all.
Oh, geez.
If you do away with number 46, or you could have number 46. This standing order is not used.
Everyone knows how rubbish I am.
You could just,
it's just numbering genders. Right.
Change
Okay.
the font to strike through and then just put redundant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's me done.
Okay. Where are we now? I'm lost.
Community governance review number 8.
Hang on a minute, Chairman. Have you got agreement on those changes?
Well, okay. David, you've moved them. Have we got a seconder for that? Mike, thank you. Is anyone disagreeing with those changes? And we should absolutely not make any amendments to the Constitution whatsoever. Nope.
No.
Okay, those are agreed then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 8, Community Government's Review. Due to delay at the Borough Council, the Community Government's Review is being undertaken again for Council to discuss and comment on this. Councillor Whip, you have indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, what happened was, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years ago now, maybe it was in 2018 when it reported, Pendle Council carried out a community governance review. This is a review of the arrangements for town and parish councils, and at the time there was a proposal that the parish meeting for Brogden and Bracewell, or Bracewell and Brogden, should be abolished and become part of the Barnoldswick township. And there were some proposals to change the boundaries between Barnoldswick and Salterford to tidy up around Dalesview Park, which is currently bisected by the parish boundary. And so all the work was done on that. It went to the full council meeting. There was a group who got a bogus majority on the council, and for, I have to say this, party political purposes, did not implement the recommendations. Nothing to do with our area, it was another area where they thought they were being disadvantaged. So Pendle Council's got this, has started it again, and he's very kindly put up the boundary between ourselves and Salterford, which, as you can see, cuts off the top of Dalesview Park. The review will take place over the coming months, and this is an initial invitation for Barnoldswick Town Councils and other councils to raise any issues that they feel are pertinent. So the ones I think we pick up where we left off, really, and it's not for the Town Council to decide, but in terms of Bracewell and Brogden, the parish meeting sadly doesn't meet, and as a consequence there's a bit of a vacuum. The practical issue has been the church star, and the parish church at Bracewell has a star on it, and there is no one to pay for this star to be put up and taken down.
Hello.
Well, that's probably the workaround, because the funding that I'd got in place for it through the area committee ran out. The residual funding was given to the parish hall, and so you know, there's an issue, but there are all sorts of little things like, you know, could there be a roadside bench, and you know, looking after footpaths, all that sort of stuff, which there isn't any attention to. So I mean, I think as far as Barnoldswick Town Council is concerned, we just draw to the attention of the Borough Council that, you know, we are aware that you know, there is no parish meeting, and that in terms of some of the financial things, you know, we've included previously the costs of the action of the church star in our tender for provision of Christmas decorations, and the Town Council has been reimbursed by Pendle Council. So that's that bit of it. And then the other bit of it is to do with that boundary that you put up between ourselves and Salterford, where the sensible thing would be for the whole of Dalesview Park to be in Salterford, rather than a small number of properties being included in Barlick, and it makes it tidy and comprehensible for people, and you know, you're not ending up with a dozen residents or whatever the number there is having to vote at a different place, all that sort of stuff. So I would move that we notify Pendle Council of those issues in terms of the electoral arrangements for Barnoldswick. What the Boundary Commission was saying following the review was that there should be a courts ward, I think with 3 members, and then I think the Boundary Commission accepted our suggestion that the rest of the town should be split into 2 other wards, you know, with a reasonable number of councillors. So, you know, I think we are content because it's what the town council asked for that was agreed. So I would move that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whip. Do we have a seconder for that? Callum, thank you. Okay. Have we got any comments? Nope. Okay. Anyone disagreeing that we should amalgamate Bracewell and Brogden into the town? Jane?
No, Chairman, I'm not suggesting that. I'm merely suggesting that we draw to the attention of Pendle Council.
Purely tongue-in-cheek.
No, it's not our job, and you shouldn't set hairs running.
Councillor Mills.
Thank you. I didn't quite catch the thing with the star. Why would somebody want to take a star up and down? I don't quite understand that bit.
Take it down to refurb every year and then put back up again.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Don't think there's any objections.
You could have
there.
a whip. How much they'd save in council tax, people in Bristol and Brogden, to put the star up.
There we go.
Did you say you're going to send a whip round? Which one?
Oh, which one?
Right. Okay. Enough of that.
I've just got draw to the attention. We're aware there's no parish meeting in terms of finance. We've provided the star within our tender, and then the whole of Dalesview Park to be in Salterfirth rather than that's it. That's really what you want to say, isn't it? I'll flower it up.
Yeah, that's the one. All right, we've done item 9, so straight on to item 10. It is with a heavy heart that we are announcing the resignation of Councillor Mike Pearce. He was co-opted on many months ago, and obviously has been a very hard-working member of the Bots Committee for much longer than that. I mean, I would like to move that we formally thank Mike Pearce for his commitment to the Town Council, for his time as a councillor. And I'll say I'll put some money from the chairman's allowance and give him a bottle of JD from the upstairs storeroom cupboard in the Civic Hall.
Usually drinks on Friday with me.
All right.
And when he said, "What do you think he'd like?" I'm like, JD.
There we go. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll buy a car, but I'll buy it out of my own money.
I don't think everyone can second, but I think everyone did. There we go. So the notices of the vacancy have been properly published according to the law. They were published as soon as possible after the notice of resignation was received. No one's called for a by-election so far. There we go. Item 11 then. Oh, no, hang on, sorry. Item 11 is the Yorkshire Water Agreement. Due to the private nature of the discussions in this, I will be moving it to the end of the agenda after correspondence and excluding press and public, which is unfortunate, but we will come on to that after the correspondence items. Item 12 then is tree surveys. to agree to waive standing orders to appoint Bowland Trees to conduct the tree service for the town council. This has been put out to several firms and only Bowland submitted a quotation for the works. Jo, do you want to explain the situation here?
Yeah, we put it out to several companies. A lot of them wouldn't do it because of the liability then put on them if there was something went wrong with one of our trees that were maybe at a roadside. Bowland were happy to do it. They have been recommended by Ian Tavendale, but Tom wanted to, he said that they are a reputable company and they've got a lot of experience in doing this for councils. However, Tom has found some more companies today that I haven't spotted. So it's what you want me to do.
I mean, my suggestion would be to agree a maximum spend of the quotation that we have received, and then contact these other companies. If the one comes back with a lower quote, you can potentially go with them, maybe in consultation with the chair, the vice chair, and the chair of GP with the clerk. See where we go from there. I mean, it's just very unfortunate that there's no local companies apart from this one, which to be honest isn't that local. Bowland is closer than the ones that I found that are willing to quote for this works. Open it up to the floor. Councillor Whip.
Chairman, just referring back to the discussion that we had about the urgency of looking at the trees down at Greenby Field. We've been trying to get somebody to do this work for quite a long while now, and I think we should get on with it.
Councillor Whittingham.
I was going to say what David was going to say. To be fair, you know, we put it out to tender. There was only one person decided they wanted to tender, so we can award that based on that.
I've never known a process where so little people come back to you. So few people. And the one who said he didn't want it, I had to try him out like 3 different emails.
If they don't want it, they don't want it. We can't force people into that.
I think he's about to retire. Somebody else.
Okay. So Councillor Whip, are you moving my suggestion? Mike, are you seconding that?
Well, actually, I was busy doing something else, but yes, I'll move that.
That's great. Okay, Jane, did you want to come in then?
No, Chairman, I was just going to second it, but I'm quite happy for Mike to do that. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay. I'll let you know if any of the companies give a quote. I think there was one in Chester, which I found, but Manchester, yeah, really far afield, but what can you do? Okay, does anyone dissent from that? Anyone not like that way forward? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Nope. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Item 13 then, town centre works and reopening of the High Street. So this is to receive a verbal update on the town centre works and to appoint a working group for the reopening of the High Street. If we do the verbal update of the town centre, I'm sure it'll be very brief, sadly. Councillor Whip, do you want to come in on this?
No, not particularly. The contractors were due back on site this Monday gone. I've not seen sight and the sound of them. They're putting oxygen compounds in for hospitals to deal with redundancy for COVID-19, which is fair enough. Had there not been a delay with the county council stumping up the legal agreement for the extension of the work to do more pavement, there might have been, they might never have gone off site and would have got further forward. I think it's regrettable that, the job has stalled now for several weeks, because that will then impact on the length of time that work carries on into the rest of the year. So I'd like to propose that as a town council, we do convey our dissatisfaction that the work hasn't continued in a timely fashion, and resolve to request that the contractor make up time by doubling the number of the doubling up on the gang, so that we have 2 gangs working in future, which will cause more inconvenience for a shorter period of time, but nevertheless we want to see the job getting on with. Beyond that, Chairman, I think the position hasn't changed since the last meeting of the Town Council. The expectation is that when they do come back, they'd complete the work around the flagpole area, which is part of the original contract, and complete the work at Old Gormless and install the street furniture on the part of the square, and then finish off that part of the town square that is almost finished, and then move on to doing the pavements that LCC are paying for. So I think we should, as a town council, just put another resolution in there to say, our expectation is that that work will be done as a priority when the contractors come back in. And then I think the final thing, Chairman, is that Joe would like to pay the money out that the Town Council are contributing to the job. So I think we should authorise Joe to make the payment from the Town Council for its contribution to the work.
Mike, are you wanting to come in?
The work's not finished, right? So they've not finished doing around the flagpole or around Old Gormless, or put the furniture in. So should we not hold off the payment until they've done that anyway?
The issue with it, Mike, is it sits in our year-end balances. It makes us look from an audit point of view, an external audit, not cracking, because we've technically got an extra £80,000 in our account. I think we've had £80,000 of work done. So
maybe we could
ask
the contractors for a staged invoice, so they can invoice us for what they've done so far, leaving the amount that they haven't done.
I think
Chairman,
just to give it over to Pendle, not to pay the contractors yet.
Yeah,
so
it's not
Pendle Council would still hold the money that we transfer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we don't pay the contractors. Yeah. It's a transfer between two authorities.
Sorry, I thought you meant pay the contractors. That's fine. If we transfer,
no, we don't get involved
then I'm happy with that.
As is just a contribution, Pendle. So.
Just to clarify, we will eventually pay the contractors. We're not. Jane, you've got your.
All you Pendle councillors are all going on holiday, aren't you?
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same as Mike there. I thought, you got to be careful paying for something that's not actually finished. But if it's going over to Pendle, then I'm quite happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jane or Mike, are you seconding David's proposal there then? Yeah, Jane, thank you. Anyone disagree with that? Way forward. Speak now. Nope. Okay. The second thing then was the working group for the reopening of the High Street. You may be aware that Pendle Council has the opportunity to bid for grant money. It's not a bidding process. They can just do it if it's eligible, which is from the European Regional Development Fund. Probably the last European money we'll see around here for a long time. So the proposal is to set up a working group, a few members of the town council, presumably those who sit on the area committee already, and some shopkeepers to be invited to be involved too, to discuss plans for seating areas outdoors, and any other sort of town centre reopening activities we could do, maybe busking,
market.
etc. Market as well, yeah. Callum, are you waving? Or? Nope. Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy to be involved with that working group, you know, being on the West Craven Area Committee. I think time's getting quite precious now. We need kind of proposals and things firming up. So just one thing on that, I would like to mention one of the shopkeepers has asked for whether it would be possible to make the side of where Simply Wicked goes down right towards the back of the town square there, if that could be pedestrianised. I don't know if that's entirely possible or not, but just something else to think about.
Albert Road.
Not Albert Road. Well, it's the one that goes between the two, isn't it? It's on that. Is it still up?
The side street.
Sides, just the little section that goes in between the two.
It's used a lot by vehicles, especially from here.
Right. Okay. I wasn't too sure whether.
Way.
Right. Okay. That's fine.
I'm not sure about the attractiveness to sit out in that alleyway either. It's a pretty ugly bit of street, but that's just me. Councillor Hoyle, you got the floor.
Right, I'm quite happy to be part of that working group. Obviously, we're aware there could be quite a few constraints with the COVID situation and stuff like that. So it's interesting to sort of get involved with that and look into how it's going to work.
Okay. Does anyone else want to put themselves forward? I mean, I've been the major contact at Pendle, so I'll put myself forward. Marjorie, yeah?
Yes, I'll put myself forward, please, Chairman.
That's great. Okay, it's 3 there. I think 3 is enough. Yep.
4. You've got 4.
4.
Jane, Jodie, you and Marjorie.
Oh yeah. Okay. No, put my hand up. That's my bad counting. Right, we're all happy with that then. Yeah. Nods all around. Yeah. Okay, that's great. We've done item 14. Item 15 then is Heritage Trail, to discuss the creation of a Heritage Trail.
Chairman.
I said it's on again.
David, go ahead.
Chairman, well, I keep wanting to push this, and so I asked for it to go onto the agenda tonight. In view of the time, I won't press it at this point, but can I ask, Chairman, in the absence of having a GP meeting where we'd get down to the nitty gritty with such things and you know, sort of discuss them in greater detail, that we perhaps establish a small working group that can take the issue forward outside the meeting. So I'm thinking, 3 or 4, a handful at most of people.
I did speak to somebody at Pendle. I haven't not done anything about it. At that point last time I looked, there was no grants available because of COVID. They were concentrating on other areas. So I spoke to Mike Williams, who's been instrumental in doing other projects like this. But when I told him we didn't, strictly speaking, have a budget, he wasn't that bothered.
Yeah. Well, what I'm wanting to do is get a group of like-minded individuals together to sort of progress the ideas and come up with some more not concrete suggestions, but more solid suggestions.
I mean, on that note, we've already got the Letcliffe Park working group that was set up, which was based around heritage.
Yeah, but it's a separate issue.
Okay. I just thought it might be it's fair enough. Jane.
Thank you. I think this is quite an interesting thing to talk about, really.
Yeah, just volunteer then.
Yeah,
just volunteer.
I will volunteer. But it could bring so many people to the area, and it could tie in nicely with Letcliffe too. So yeah, I'm quite happy to do that.
No one else want to put themselves forward? Chris, yeah.
Are we assuming David?
Yeah, I think I am assuming David. Yeah, me as well. That's fine.
What a lovely sized little working route.
Okay. Are we happy with that one? Heritage Trail for now.
Mm.
I mean, it's a shame we haven't been able to get any progress, but there we are. Item 16 then, we've
Sorry.
got correspondence / items of information. Joe, have we received any correspondence?
No.
Okay. That's fine. Right, I'll just check if we've got any
Update
comments.
though, I have had 2 freedom of information requests, which you know about. The first one, we've got another one this week on a very similar vein. So I'm on my 3rd reply to that member of the public. There you go, just so you know.
Yeah. And you're still counting your hours to make sure you're not going over that free limit.
£450 limit per person. They're getting easier because I've just got a little folder on my desktop that I just save all the documents into.
Yeah, I mean, most of the information they're asking for is freely available on the website anyway. You can see all the past agendas and minutes on there. Okay, there's been no questions in the live chat. So I think now we need to move that we're going to exclude the press and public for the discussion of the Yorkshire Water Agreement. Joe, have you prepared a little official?
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me get it up then.
Do you want me to?
That'll be quicker, yeah.
Gemma, are we off live stream now?
No, he's got to read
We're not
this
off
out.
yet. We've got to move that will exclude the press and public. Otherwise, we'll just be so. So we need to agree to exclude the press and public from the meeting during the following items of business in pursuance of the power contained in section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended when it was likely, in view of the nature of the proceedings or the business to be transacted, that would be disclosure of exempt information which was likely to reveal.
No, likely to be commercially sensitive.
Likely to be commercially sensitive.
That's what she said I had to write. So.
Okay, yeah. So I'll move that. Have we got a seconder? Thanks, Mick. Anyone disagreeing vehemently with kicking the public out? No.
I'll turn into Weaver and just delete everybody.
Hang on. Just before I do, we have got a question from Tony Whitley Hanson in the live stream. She's asking about antisocial behaviour in town and working with the local police PCSOs. Anyone want to just discuss that? Jen?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's something I have raised with you and Joe earlier today. There has been quite a lot of antisocial behaviour in the Barnoldswick area over the last few weeks. Seemingly, we don't know exactly how much action has been done regarding this, but at the West Craven Area Committee, when we raised it with the police, they basically said that they'd only received, an odd 1 or 2 reports. So a lot of these cases that we are seeing on social media do not appear to be getting through to the police, and the police basically were asking us to promote Lancashire Talking, which is a website you can go on. I think you find it on the Lancashire Police site itself. If you have any problems in a particular area, you can highlight that on that site. Obviously, if it's really urgent and important, you ring them directly on the emergency numbers or the non-emergency number. But if there are clusters of cases and you've got information of times, places, you know, whether we can look at CCTV or what. If it's a way of trying to reduce this antisocial behaviour, we can only do so much as town councillors. We can keep reporting it, but they need to see also reports from members of the public, and the more reports they get, they seem to be able to put things in action to try and sort it. So we need members of the public, locals, to participate more, and that's my thinking of it anyway. Thank you.
The last Wednesday or last Thursday, when I had that gap between work and then coming back to a meeting, I saw 4 different police cars in Barley, and they were different because they had different offices in them, and there were police everywhere. So I think that they might know there's a problem, unless that were after the meeting.
I mean, certainly as with my hat as an area committee member, we've been raising that with the police officers for the area at the area committee meetings. Again, as Jane said, you just need to report them to the police. If it's happening right now, you dial 999. If it's something that's happened, they're not there anymore, you can dial 101. Log the report, and the more people log them, the more the police have a picture of where things are happening and where they can intervene in future proactively. That's just the best way of dealing with these things. Mick?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I totally agree with what Jane's saying. I dialed in and listened to that area committee. The big concern for me around ASB in Barnoldswick is the increasing number of small fires that we're getting, fire damage to our toilet block, bins, etc. Like the other bits of ASB, they're not getting reported. But I personally would like to meet, if possible, with both hats on, with the local policing officers to see what we can do about that, try and improve it, if everyone's agreement on that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could set up a meeting as Barnoldswick Town Council with you, Mick, and probably me as well, and discuss that with our local sergeants.
Yeah, thank you.
Who would you like to invite? I'm really sorry, I don't know who the sergeant is at the minute.
I can send you the details after if you want.
I'm saying, right, okay.
Could I suggest that we actually invite the Chief Inspector, Marie?
Yep, certainly can.
Who's the new one for Barnoldswick?
We've got PC Kevin Dolphin.
No, it's a female.
I've met her, I should know her name.
I messaged the other day about an issue down at the park, I think it was, maybe the fire, and she was right on the phone to me. So when you get hold of one of them, she said every time she comes on shift, she has a drive round Victory Park just to make sure everything's as it should be. So when we are telling them there's an issue, I think they are listening, I'd like to think. I didn't feel like she was paying lip service anyway.
I mean, I'm very firmly of the view that we go in at Chief Inspector or Inspector level. The Inspector is Andy Ashworth, and you know, they're the people who are making decisions about deployment of officers and what's prioritised and what's not. The troops on the ground, you know, they're sort of, you know, poor bloody infantry, aren't they?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Jane, you've raised your hand.
Just very briefly, if a meeting is set up, would I be able to have access to that meeting? I've been given quite a lot of information from different sources about what's going on around town. I just wondered if we could make a contribution to that meeting to try and explain what's happening. Thank you.
I think it would be better for the officers if the people who gave you that information reported it, because I mean, certainly at the area committee, I was given the impression that it's all well and good the officers getting told about the incidents, but really the best thing is if it's reported on the system that's a proper record that they can work with. Jodie, you've got your hand up. You want to come in?
I think on a very basic level for all of us, if we see anything on social media, keep hammering home it needs reporting to police. And also mentioning this Lancashire Talks as well, then things can be reported. Some people might not want to ring up because they might not want to sort of make it obvious. So putting it on there, if that's going to still flag it up to the police, it's a more accessible thing for some people.
Is there a link?
There is, yeah.
I'm sure we could find one.
I'm thinking, do we just like every time something comes on, one of us puts the link on?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what I'm thinking.
I know Tony on Barlick Talk, every time something pops up, she always tries to say, have you reported it? Have you reported it?
But I suppose also if Tony's still watching, for her to pop that link on as well.
Yeah. Okay, have we finished this discussion? Jane, is there anything sort of considerable you want to add?
Is there any way of putting that link up for people just to see on the screen here tonight so they can see what it is? Is that possible?
I mean, there is, but I'll do it if you want. But really, you just type in Lancashire Talking on Google. It's the top result, Lancashire Constabulary / Lancashire Talking. The site is lancashire.police.uk / Lancashire Talking. If I pop it on now, you come up to this page here. That's the link at the top, and you get the information.
Yeah, here. For the purpose of the meeting, I suggest you take that link and put it into the comment section of the chat of the YouTube video.
Can do, yeah. Yeah, that's done. Right, I think we can wrap up there. We've already got agreement for kicking out the members of the press and public for this next item. I'll thank everyone at home for watching. I know we've had a maximum 15 people at any one time. I think that's a pretty decent turnout. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Making sure it goes off. You wonder what I'm doing.
Just got to time the end stream for the end. I think that's a pretty decent turnout. Thank you very much.
Got a lag on it, hasn't it?
Hope you enjoyed. Yeah, stream delay.